I often get questions or stories from men who are or have recently been in a toxic relationship with a female covert narcissist. But as they share their story and describe their situation and their partner, it sometimes sounds a lot more like someone with borderline personality disorder or both BPD and NPD. So today I want to try to clear up some of that confusion by explaining the key differences between borderline and narcissistic personality disorder. And in an upcoming video, I'll explain what it looks like when someone has both disorders. I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach, and today I'm talking about the first 5 key differences between a covert narcissist and untreated borderline. Part 2 will cover the remaining 5, so please subscribe so that you don't miss it. Okay, so let's jump right in with number 1, which is their core fear. A woman with borderline personality disorder is primarily driven by a fear of abandonment, whereas a covert narcissist is primarily driven by a fear of being exposed. For the woman with BPD, abandonment doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it actually feels painful and sometimes even life threatening. Even something as small as a delayed text, a shift in your tone, talking to a friend, or glancing in someone else's direction can trigger alarm bells in her nervous system. And once that fear of abandonment kicks in, she can spiral fast. She might break down, lash out, accuse you of things that you didn't do, beg you not to leave, or even sabotage the relationship. And the tragic part is that she often ends up hurting both of you in the process, saying things that she can't take back, doing things that she later regrets, and sometimes turning that pain onto herself. Her reactions are rooted in panic and in emotional dysregulation. A covert narcissist, on the other hand, is less concerned about being abandoned and much more afraid of being exposed. Her core fear is that someone will see through her mask. They will discover that she's not as perfect, kind, or morally superior as she wants to be perceived. So instead of panicking, she gets extremely defensive. She might withdraw, go cold, play the victim, or plot ways to punish you for making her feel vulnerable and exposed. So, to be clear, both types can manipulate, lash out, or even say cruel things, but the why behind their behavior is very different. Number 2 is idealization and devaluation. So, one of the most confusing parts of being in a relationship with a woman who has untreated borderline personality is the constant flipping between idealization and devaluation. And this cycle doesn't just happen at the beginning of the relationship, it continues throughout. And over time, the swings get faster and more intense. So, one moment, you're her hero, you're her everything. The next, you are the enemy. But then she pulls you back in with overwhelming love, out of this world sex, and genuine affection. So for a moment, you're back on that pedestal and everything's great again. With a covert narcissist, this might look similar in the beginning. That intense connection, flattery, admiration, promises of a perfect future. But instead of emotional swings, what you'll see over time is a slow, steady decline. The idealization and love bombing fades away, and you're left with criticism, disappointment, and contempt. So she doesn't often cycle back to that warmth and that affection the way someone with BPD does, unless she wants something or is in public and is trying to impress others. Number 3 is around self image. A borderline has a fragmented and unstable sense of self, so she might feel completely different from one day to the next. Her beliefs, her goals, her values, how she sees herself may shift depending on who she's with, but especially how she feels in that moment. In contrast, a covert narcissist clings tightly to the carefully constructed self image, which might be the selfless mother, the misunderstood genius, or the morally superior victim. Her self image is rigid and it's not open to any feedback. Any threat to her identity is met with defensiveness, whereas a woman with BPD tends to internalize any criticism or feedback and take it as confirmation that she's unworthy and unlovable and that you're going to leave her. And this can lead to those spirals of self blame, begging for forgiveness, or frantic efforts to prove her worth and avoid abandonment. Point number 4 is empathy and communication. When emotionally regulated, borderlines have more emotional empathy than most. They can feel deeply what others are feeling. But the second she feels emotionally triggered, it's like a switch flips. Her nervous system goes into survival mode and that empathy disappears. Even if you're calm and reasonable, she hears your words as betrayal, abandonment. Trying to communicate in that moment can feel like you're suddenly on trial, where anything you say or don't say gets twisted into evidence that confirms what a terrible person you are and your horrible intentions. Everything is being filtered through that lens of fear and abandonment. And in that moment, you're no longer her partner or friend. You are the enemy. But when she calms down, once she's back to herself, her nervous system has settled and the emotional storm has passed, she often feels intense remorse and can apologize, sometimes profusely. But unless she's in active treatment and learning to regulate those emotions and behaviors, the same patterns will tend to repeat. With a covert narcissist, those apologies are rare. They don't feel that remorse. And the empathy you sensed early on in the relationship is often just an illusion. She's not truly feeling your feelings with you. She's studying you. What seems like emotional connection is often just cognitive empathy. It's a strategic mimicking of your feelings, not a shared heartfelt experience. So when conflict arises, she doesn't spiral into emotional overwhelm like someone with borderline personality disorder. Instead, she becomes calculating and punishing because in her mind, you're not just disagreeing, you're trying to hurt her. You're trying to control her or expose her. So everything becomes a threat to her ego and her image. So instead of owning her part, she flips the script. She will deny, attack, reverse the victim and offender roles. Suddenly, you're the one who's being accused. You may try to explain how something made you feel, and all of a sudden, she's turning it into how you hurt her. And because she's often quiet, tearful, or self effacing when playing the victim, you may start questioning yourself, wondering if you really were too harsh or if you are the narcissist. So, anytime you bring up your needs, concerns, or try to resolve an issue, no matter how gently or respectfully, you'll leave the conversation in a maze of confusion, feeling disoriented and unsure of what just happened. And that's exactly how she maintains control. Point number 5 is with the double standards. With a woman with untreated borderline personality disorder, the double standards typically stem from that fear of abandonment and emotional dysregulation. For example, she may expect you to be available to her 24/7, to always reassure her, but then if she lashes out, disappears, or crosses your boundaries, she excuses her behavior, saying she was scared, triggered, or overwhelmed, which may be true. But her emotional state becomes the justification for her behavior that she would absolutely not tolerate from you. A covert narcissist, on the other hand, applies double standards much more strategically. She expects your full loyalty, constant admiration, and intense emotional labor, while she gives you very little in return. She may criticize you for things that she does all the time, hold you to impossible standards that she doesn't have to abide by, and subtly make you feel like you're never doing enough or never doing anything right. Meanwhile, her mistakes are minimized or denied, and any attempt that you make to set boundaries or express concerns again gets flipped back onto you. Over time, these double standards wear you down, not through dramatic outbursts like someone with BPD, but through a steady erosion of fairness. So you're constantly adjusting, accommodating, and second guessing yourself, while she positions herself as the victim. No matter how much you do or how hard you try, you'll be accused of being selfish, self centered, when in reality, everything is revolving around her needs. In part two, I will explain 5 more key differences between borderline personality disorder and covert narcissism. But in the meantime, if you want to learn more about the tactics of a female covert narcissist, please click on the link above.